Welcome to the All About You podcast. My name is Sheila and I am your host. In this podcast, I invite everyday people to tell their stories of their travels, passions, and what makes them happy. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story. So now for today's conversation. Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. This time of year can be very stressful for so many reasons. So I wanted to invite Kate Greenslade back, who is a mindfulness coach, to help us navigate our way during this time. So Kate, welcome back.
Thanks, Sheila. It's so lovely to be back and here and talking about all things mindful, particularly with the holidays coming up. Lots of things on our mind, I imagine.
Yep, I think Christmas is always a stressful time anyway. And I think one of the things that always comes up is our expectation. We want to have the perfect food, the perfect gifts, the perfect home, the perfect everything for everybody. We are setting ourselves up for a lot of failure, disappointment, and stress. So, Kate, where do we start navigating a calm Christmas?
The big question, calm Christmas. Well, it's funny enough, the expectation, letting go of expectation was the first thing on my list as well. It's the first thing that came up. It's the biggest thing. It covers, as you said, every element, every aspect of Christmas. And I think partly that definitely comes from us, but there's so much external pressure, the advertising and just the fact that, Christmas has got this big momentum and, you're supposed to be this and you're supposed to do that. But also we feel like, okay, so this is a one-off kind of opportunity to do all this in the year. So it's got to be the best, like you said, the best food. Our gifts have got to be perfect. And then on top of that, we've got to show up with our best selves, jolly, fun, relaxed, the perfect chef as well. And so, of course, that is utterly overwhelming, not to mention completely unattainable, of course, which is why people have interesting Christmases, let's say, with heated, difficult conversations and people wanting to just sort of escape the house and all the rest of it. So I suppose, let's talk about some of the areas that we really find particularly difficult and what we can do about them. At the moment with COVID, this is very topical, so perhaps we should start with some expectations that have perhaps been impacted by COVID. So we were talking just before we started recording there about how, your plans might have changed. Ours certainly have. We're not going back to the UK anymore. And so maybe some of the things around that. So we can feel guilt that we're not with other family members or friends, or not just with them, but maybe supporting them and helping them. We also might feel that sort of FOMO a little bit, if we have got lots of friends or family in another country that we're not going to be sharing that with, and feeling lonely and feeling out of it. So I suppose those are the two main areas. And I guess one of the mindful approaches to that, I mean, it sounds simple. I realize a lot of this stuff today is going to sound simple, but it's not necessarily easy to achieve. This is where the sort of regular practice comes in. But essentially, it's noticing these difficult thoughts, feelings that we're having, and essentially choosing to let them go. Because it's really about noticing the sort of journey that they're taking. They take on a life of their own. So we might start off by having some thoughts about, okay, I'm making a sensible decision not to travel this Christmas. Okay, so what's the impact of that? And then we might start thinking, oh God, but what about so-and-so? They're going to really be disappointed, or someone's going to be really angry or hurt. And then we start continuing that story and we'll layer that up. And then the more we think about it, the worse it gets. And then suddenly we're feeling awful. So it's really catching that journey as soon as we can, as early as we can, and choosing, okay, I'm going to let this go for my own mental well-being. There's no good in going down the path that I'm about to go down.
I think it's a very interesting point, because one thing I do remember from last year, because basically last year Christmas was cancelled, and I remember having conversations with so many people saying, actually, we are quite relieved. We are going to stay at home with the family, lock the door, and literally just us. And there was this huge sense of, we're not traveling. We're not going to be, staying in other people's houses, which alone can be stressful, or with hotels. And I think once people said, okay, let's just do a Christmas with us. If we want to stay in our pajamas all day, that's fine. And the pressure seemed to just fall away from people, because we are staying at home, we're not going anywhere, and most people were doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. What's really interesting about that is that obviously some of that, the decision is taken out of our hands. So there's some responsibility that isn't ours, I think, with that. And so it's kind of like, oh, thank goodness we don't almost have to cancel Christmas. It's not like us cancelling Christmas. It's kind of like, okay, we're doing the sensible thing. But I think there's so many brilliant lessons to learn from that, from last year, to bring to this year, to really consider, like, even if you can travel, or all your friends and family are where you are, if you're lucky enough to have that, what lessons do you want to take from last year? How mindful do you want to be about the time that you spend, usually off work for quite a lot of people, with loved ones that maybe you don't see very much? I suppose how you want to show up is the main thing. What do you want out of this time? Do you just need some rest? Do you actually need no plans? And really honor yourself. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the more we can reflect on our past experiences and really spend that time, like, we don't give ourselves enough time to think about our life, think about what's been. And I know mindfulness is about living in the moment, but there's still value in, looking back to see what's worked, what's not worked. Okay, what do I want less of or more of?
I mean, for me, every year I sort of plan Christmas. It's generally me and my husband, but I still sort of, what are we going to eat? What do we want to do? Any films? Do we want to go anywhere? And I always sit back after Christmas and say, okay, what worked? What didn't work? What am I going to change for next year? It's almost having a debrief after the event. So when I look this year, I thought, okay, I planned too many meals. We didn't eat half the stuff we planned to eat. So, right, this year I'm going to cut it back by 50%. That makes life a bit easier. I mean, I know it's just me and my husband. We haven't got children. We haven't got relatives here. Just having that debrief on the practical side of things really works. But as you say, having a debrief on what worked for me last year. Was I happy, having a line in the mornings and moving the day back a few hours? Or did I want to get out every day and we made the effort just to go for a half-hour walk around the neighbourhood? And it's having a debrief on how you felt last year.
Yeah, I love that tip about the sort of Christmas debrief on a practical basis as well. Like, just, I mean, you mentioned about the sort of food waste. I do that too. It's awful, isn't it? And then then that also feeds into sort of feeling guilty, and then so that's a really great tip. It's a bit like that when you go on holiday and then you pack an enormous suitcase and don't use half of it.
Absolutely.
Which we all do, right? Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the debrief of your emotions as well. How did you feel, and what certain activities or I think just this sort of approach of the holidays, how did that make you feel? And if that wasn't, if you're not jumping up and down with joy for that, what do you need to attend to? What do you need to really think about to alter? And it can just be a small thing. I mean, you mentioned going out for walks. Like, being in nature is such an incredible kind of healer. It just rejuvenates our soul. It just does. And so even just sort of making time for a few kind of strolls in nature, or whatever it is that you like doing, to break up that holiday time. Yeah, wonderful.
we've had Christmas on the TV for months. And I was reading an article the other day, and it was talking about what is your perfect Christmas? Even if we just sit there with a cup of coffee and just sort of write a load of words and feelings down, what would be your perfect Christmas? Are you somebody who wants to go out and paint the town red? Are you somebody who wants to be with all the family around you? Sort of think of your perfect Christmas and then think, okay, how can I translate that into this year with the limitations we've got? Maybe you're not going to be with family, but okay, I can't be with family, but have I sort of organised who I'm going to speak to with the Skype calls or FaceTime and things? And have I made a list of films I'd like to watch over Christmas? So I have a bit of a plan, as in my perfect Christmas would be going to see a Christmas show. Okay, can't really do that. But let's have a look at the films that are available on YouTube or on Netflix, for example. So it's almost you're creating your alternative perfect Christmas, but within the parameters that are available to us at the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that helps that as well is to, when you've thought about, okay, yeah, I like to go and see a show, for example, and if that's not available, really consider what it is about that you do enjoy, because it might be that you can think of some other things that are nothing like going to a show, but it still gives you that, okay, it's a sort of sense of something special or doing something different, or it might be with a larger group of people, or whatever it is. So there's often, if we can really get creative when there's limitations, and then we can end up sort of doing new things and thinking, oh my gosh, I actually prefer that than going to a show, for example. But actually you picked up on a really great point as well, because obviously we can spend some time designing our best Christmas, or what we want to do and what we don't want to do, just as importantly through the holidays. But there will be a certain amount of things that are still uncertain and things that are out of our control. So to have an awareness of how we're going to approach uncertainty, how we're going to receive things that we haven't planned for, I don't know, someone turns up and you haven't invited them to a party or whatever, and you don't particularly like them, or you go out and actually your restaurant booking hadn't gone through properly, you don't have a table, you've got to go somewhere else. I mean, these seem like maybe small things, but they can get us quite stressed, and it can impact our evening or our day. Well, one thing is that we can be too fixed on an outcome. So we can be thinking, okay, we want to do this is how it's going to be, and that's going to be great. And to deviate from that plan is like a bit of a disaster. So to be a bit more open-minded with, okay, well, we'll see what also comes up, and be a little bit kind of curious about that, rather than judging straight away, oh no, this is what I didn't want this. And because obviously, we can't control everything, unfortunately.
I keep coming back to this word expectation. This, I think, is the problem, expecting everything to go according to plan, as you've just talked about, expecting everybody to be on their best behavior, everybody to be kind to each other. I mean, I think Christmas at the best of time is you put a lot of people together, throw in lots of food, throw in alcohol, and you're just waiting for the explosion. And we can think, well, actually, hopefully that's not going to happen this year, because it's just me and my family, or we've taken it down, we're doing 50% of what we would normally do. So I think it's checking in with yourself and saying, we are in uncertain times. Things are not going to go according to plan. Instead of having a bit of a wobbly about it, just think, okay, let's just roll with it at the moment and breathe.
Yes, that key one. Don't forget to breathe.
Yeah. And I think, that's the first thing. Whenever there's some stress, our breathing just goes crazy, and that it just runs away with itself. We start to feel angry, we're tense, our blood pressure goes up. Expectation, let that go and do more of the breathing.
I think kind of keeping it simple, with when we can notice ourselves being triggered by something or something that someone said or done, or whatever that's going on, it's really about being aware of that and noticing it, and then kind of stepping back from it a little bit, observing it. It's like, oh, I noticed I started getting really annoyed with the dog because they're barking, and I kind of just wanted a peaceful time with my coffee, or whatever it is, and your things are getting a bit chaotic, kids are running around, or whatever's going on. And it's about, if you can notice what's going on for yourself, allowing it, a little bit like that sort of letting go of expectation, we can kind of let go of the sort of frustration that we're feeling, and sort of make a decision. We can decide, okay, well, do I want to feel annoyed and continue feeling frustrated and judging whatever's going on, or do I want to just let that go and keep my mind open and curious for opportunities to sort of connect with people, or do something different, or notice something new that perhaps we haven't noticed. Like there's so many opportunities just through our day, and generally not just in the holidays, but possibly more in the holidays if we're seeing more people, to have those moments of connection. And that is what life is all about, right? I mean, those are the things that we remember and cherish. And so how we can do that more effectively is to be in the present moment more.
I think one of the things as well is we all got pretty creative when we were in the lockdown. We started picking up musical instruments, we got out our colouring pencils and our paintbrushes and things. And I just think maybe because we probably are going to be a bit more home-based this year, maybe we should turn it round to say, okay, well, maybe I'll try and spend half an hour every day over the free time you have. I'm just going to sit down and maybe get out a pen and your colouring pencils, or a table game or a board game or something like that. And even with your family, switch off the TV, because obviously technology can be quite stressful. Put some music on the radio, sit round the table and have a good old board game, or one of the old charade type things, because you're still connecting, because it's very easy to sit in front of the TV, I think. And even when you have friends round, after you've had a big meal, everyone collapses in the chair and watches the latest film or soap on the TV, and then the Quality Street comes out, sort of thing. Maybe bring out the board games and all the bits and pieces that we've already got in our homes, and use that as a family connecting idea.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I wonder, though, I think it's almost sort of preparing for maybe some resistances with that. So again, this is something that we can prepare from a mindfulness perspective. Of course, that's all about living in the moment. But when we prepare our kind of emotional responses to things, we can find it's less stressful in the moment because we've got something in our back pocket ready to go. So in terms of things like technology, sort of reducing the amount of technology over the holidays, I mean, I love that idea. It's just brilliant. I think everyone would benefit from that. But there's probably going to be some resistances, maybe from the kids, but actually everyone's on their phone, aren't they? Checking everything all the time. So kind of preparing for, if someone doesn't want to do that, to not let that influence and impact the time you're going to have with the people that do want to do it. And just I'm going to come back to that letting go. Just let that go. It's their experience too, and if they don't want to, then that's fine. We can still, there might be even just one person that wants to sit down and do some colouring after some turkey, and everyone else is in the lounge watching TV, but that's also fine. That's their choice, because I think that can be quite difficult. I think going back to that expectations of sort of creating this ideal situation, that might be ideal for you, but that might not be ideal for other people.
Absolutely. I just sort of imagine dragging all the board games out of the loft, putting them in a pile in the living room, and you never know that they're there. So if people fancy having a game, so if you've got people with you, a few might want to watch the film, and another couple might just fancy having a game of chess or snap. We don't necessarily have to do everything all together all the time. Yeah. Especially when you have sort of different age groups. You've got the kids, you've got the parents, you might have uncles and aunties and grandparents. So you're trying to cater maybe for 3 generations. Not everyone's, going to want to do the same thing. So it's this expectation, Kate. I think this is the number one word, isn't it? Expectation.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's something else that comes into that as well, which is the expectation you have of yourself to make other people happy. So there's, we can often feel like it's our responsibility for everyone to have a great time. I mean, obviously this goes on from what we were just saying. Just kind of in general, it's like, okay, even if you're not hosting a party or whatever over Christmas, you can still feel responsible for someone else's happiness or level of enjoyment or whatever. And really all you can do is set up the space for that and be your true self, be present, and the rest is up to them. We can't ever know what someone is going through. Everyone's had, a tough year, let's face it. It's been difficult for a lot of people in lots of different ways. So to just be, I suppose, try and be comfortable with the sort of uncomfortable. If there's going to be some people that haven't, had a great time and they're not up for a big jolly up, that's okay too. It can be nice. You can still have a nice kind of connection just by being with each other. You don't have to be doing the conga around the living room. It's okay.
And I also think with Christmas, we often sort of book ourselves in Monday we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing that, Wednesday we're doing something else. I think it's good to sort of try and plan a day when maybe there is nothing planned, there is nothing on the agenda, nobody's coming to you, you're not going anywhere, and just enjoying that day to relax and take a break from it all. I mean, building that one day that you leave clear just to be with you or, in your home with your family. Give yourself a bit of a break. And then if you want to get back on the wagon and go full throttle the next day, then fine. But I think, try and build, one afternoon or one day if you can. Maybe take that long bath with a book. Maybe switch the TV off for the afternoon and just have a little nap or whatever, or get out into the countryside. I think building a bit of downtime is also very useful.
It definitely is. And I think we might have talked about this in the last podcast about non-doing and how important non-doing is. And we're so used to, even if, say we've got 20 minutes between things, we're just back to back all the time, but we might have 20 minutes. The first thing we might do is pick up our phone and check our emails or go on social media and the urge, or even if we just pick up a magazine, the urge to do something is so high, but actually the benefit to our physical and mental well-being to just sit there, just, get comfy on the sofa or whatever, or outside, and just sit and just breathe. And I mean, like you said earlier, just be, I know you said stuff after that, but I would stop there, just be, take that time to just be, because that's when we notice, okay, how we're really feeling, what's going on in our mind. Do we need a little check-in? Like, do we need to maybe kind of up the gratitude a bit, or, just have a little kind of check-in with how we're talking to ourselves as well. So it can't be overestimated how important non-doing is. Yeah, even 5-10 minutes.
I think the other thing that we get every year for New Year is, as soon as Christmas is over, it's new you, new diet, new exercise program. We've all got to do this, we've all got to do that. And the expectation for that alone is, next year I'm going to be a better person, I'm going to go to the gym more, I'm going to do. That comes right on top of Christmas. And that's just crazy, because the message is, you're not good enough as you are. So next year you're going to make a plan to make yourself better. And I think that right on top of Christmas is just sort of the icing on the cake that we don't want to eat.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, it really is. And it's so funny, because I think it often seems like a really long way away, sort of next year. It's like, okay, well, next year, yeah, I can do this all next year. But it's a day between. Just one day it's December and the next day it's January. And I mean, I know that sounds like, stating the obvious, but it can really feel like just sort of creeps up and then suddenly it's here. And then we're into the new year. Like you said, oh, where's your plan for being better, a better you? Well, actually, you're perfect as you are. We are perfect as we are. And it's good to keep an eye on our kind of personal growth, whether that's physical or mental, emotional. Of course, that's nice. I think going back to that sort of non-doing, giving ourselves a bit of space to really listen to ourselves, be kind to ourselves, be compassionate, and really accept who we are. Actually, the biggest change comes after we've accepted who we are in that moment, strangely.
I mean, I know for myself, I ignore all this new you, new year business. I sort of have my goal setting and reflection period in September. I work with the academic school year. And for me, it's much better because I don't feel there's the pressure with Christmas. And as soon as you've been the perfect hostess or host, right now, because you're broken, you've got to have, what's your game plan for next year? It's crazy. I think kindness to ourselves. We can organise things the best of our ability, but then there is a point where you've just got to say, okay, let's just see what happens. It's probably not going to be perfect. There's going to be ups and downs. There'll be alternatives, a few things we need to negotiate, but be kind and breathe.
Yeah, and that word perfection, it's really damaging because perfection doesn't exist. It's just perception, actually. So one of the things that we can mindfully do for ourselves is, back to that, accepting who we are, but also just loving who we are at every stage. If we look back throughout our life, we've changed. Everything and everybody changes. It is part of life, and that can be something that we celebrate rather than constantly kind of berating ourselves for this or not doing enough of that. It's like, well, this is your life, and we only have one short life. So to really be grateful for what you have, even if it's not what you want.
I mean, somebody put an amazing post on Facebook the other day, and it was talking about decorating the tree. They had decorated the tree with their children, with a lot of things the children had made over the years at school. The tree was not picture perfect. And my comment was, the tree is full of memories. It's not Instagram perfect. And I thought it was so interesting. The tree is full of memories because we've often all got ornaments that we've found over the years, we've been given over the years. We are not trying to create an Instagram tree. We are making a tree of memories. And I just thought that was brilliant. And you just build it over the years. Yeah. And I think that's a bit like life, isn't it? We build our memories. They're not perfect. They're not always shiny. They're not always golden, but we build them over the year. They're memories for us, not what's on Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. And also that experience that they had, the kids making the tree is also something to completely cherish. What a beautiful experience they had together. So that's the things that are important. I think it's keeping your eye on what's really important. And I suppose if I was to sort of think of one thing to see you through the whole thing, is just sort of love it all. Just love it all, because it's all great and weird and wonderful in its weird and wonderful way, right? And I guess we can kind of be a bit stoic about it too and think, okay, well, what's the worst that's going to happen here? And how would I cope with that with a smile on my face? And if you can do that, then you can cope with anything.
And it's often those moments where things do go wrong that are funny. You forgot to turn the oven on when you put the turkey in. You've hidden the presents if you've no idea where they are. It's all these little things that happen. You might not have turkey for lunch, but you've still got all the other bits and pieces. So laugh at it.
Yeah, and everyone will remember that at Christmas.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they'll be laughing for it for years afterwards. So, Kate, just to wrap up this podcast, this special Christmas, trying to keep us all calm, any final words of advice then?
Well, I think two things really is about noticing when you're holding too tightly onto expectation and you notice how that feels. Just for what you were saying, breathe and just decide to let it go. It's a decision. I'm choosing to let this go. And yeah, love and compassion all the way.
Yeah, so laugh when things go wrong, love when things go right, and just let go of expectation and perfection, definitely. Well, Kate, can I wish you a very, very happy Christmas to you and your family?
Thank you. You too, Sheila. It's been so cool talking.
Oh, it's been lovely. It's lovely. I mean, I think I'm ready to embrace Christmas now calmly.
Oh, I love it.
Happy Christmas, Kate. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for listening to the All About You podcast, and I would like to wish you and your families a very, very happy Christmas, and I look forward to bringing you more conversations on the All About You podcast.